BC's chief coroner says it's been extremely disappointing to see overdose deaths turned into political fodder for critics of harm reduction and decriminalization as the province hits another record toll. Lisa Lapointe says 2,511 people died of suspected illicit drug poisoning last year, which is the highest annual number. Ms. Lapointe says asking doctors to prescribe safe supply will not address the crisis, and only about 5,000 people have access to prescribed safer supply. Joining us now to discuss the latest on drug overdoses from BC is Adam Zivo, columnist with the National Post. Adam, thank you very much for coming back on Forum Daily.
Thank you for having me yet again.
What do you make of the claim that overdose deaths are being used as political fodder?
I think it's deeply misleading. The fact is that whenever you have any addiction strategy, you have to have some kind of accountability. And the fact is that the current addiction strategies being used in BC obviously aren't working. We have a very simple way to measure that, which is overdoses and deaths. And those are just going higher. And asking us to change direction is not using these deaths as political fodder. It's asking us to reduce these deaths. It's asking us to have just some sort of basic accountability.
Well, now, Ms. Lapointe would be arguing that the issue isn't safe supply drugs, it's the fact that illegal drugs are the drugs that are causing overdose deaths. What do you make of her position there?
Once again, I think it's a little bit misleading, and she should be well aware of the fact that it is. The fact is that most people, they initiate their opioid addiction on prescription drugs such as OxyContin or hydromorphone, and then they later graduate onto harder substances such as fentanyl, which kills them. So the fact that most people are dying of fentanyl overdoses doesn't change the fact that safer supply is contributing to that pipeline and creating delayed deaths.
Okay, okay. And when you say contributing to the pipeline and creating delayed deaths, can you elaborate on that?
Well, let's say, for example, someone who would never try an opioid because it would be too expensive or hard to find on the black market suddenly realizes they can buy safe supply hydromorphone on the street corner for $2. And they experiment with it and they get addicted because these drugs are the equivalent of pharmaceutical heroin. And then over time, their
Mhm.
tolerance builds up because that's how opioids work. You have to use more and more and more and more. And eventually they graduate onto
Mhm.
fentanyl, and fentanyl is lethal. And let's say after 2 years, that fentanyl kills them. Well, that is clearly a death which originates in safer supply. And that safer supply caused to some extent. But under Lisa Lapointe's current methodology, that wouldn't count as a safer supply related death.
Understood. Okay. And on that note of deaths, how have overdose deaths changed over time? Are we seeing an increase in overdoses coinciding with the expansion of safe supply?
We are. I mean, overdoses did spike significantly in 2020, which was a response to COVID, and that's the same time that safer supply was dramatically scaled up. So overdoses have only increased since then. It's hard to say whether it is entirely caused by safer supply. Obviously, there are
Mhm.
there are many different factors that are contributing to this, but safer supply obviously is not helping, and neither is decriminalization.
So you've covered this debate extensively. What, in your view, is the best model to prevent these overdose deaths? Is there something abroad or something else that has been proposed that could have the level of accountability that you've written about, while also working toward a system that either includes treatment or ultimately saves lives and prevents these overdose deaths?
Well, I mean, throughout other parts of the world, people use something known as the four pillar model, right? So harm reduction, treatment, uh, enforcement, and prevention,
Mhm.
right? And so I think that putting more focus on the other three would obviously be a better approach. Alberta is experimenting with that and seems to have some positive results. I mean, obviously their overdose numbers are also climbing, but it doesn't seem to be as dramatic. So I think we could
Mhm.
maybe pull from there, especially since Alberta draws inspiration from Portugal, where we saw positive outcomes.
Adam, thank you very much for coming back with us to talk about this difficult issue. We'll continue to have you on as this develops. So yeah, appreciate you taking the time.
Thanks for having me once again.
Stay with us. We'll be right back on Forum Daily.